If you missed part 1, pause right now and go back to the beginning. Last time, a Himalayan blizzard sealed Willowbrook Manor off from the world. 5 old friends gathered for what Harlan Whitmore promised would be their final weekend together. Harlan, the man who had shaped every one of their lives and kept their darkest secrets for decades, walked into his study to finish the memoir that would finally lay bare the truth about them all. Hours later, Lena found him slumped at his desk, pen still in his fingers, one unfinished sentence trapped under his arm. "And to the one who carried my bags all these years, the one I never properly thanked." The official story they told themselves that night was heart attack, but that sentence refuses to stay buried. This morning, with his body still in the next room and the storm still raging outside, they are about to discover that every single one of them had a reason to make sure that memoir never reached the world. The weight of what happened last night is pressing down on them, like the snow piling up against the windows, and the motives are starting to surface, one by one. The storm has not let up. If anything, it has grown angrier overnight, the wind howling against the stone walls of Willowbrook Manor like a living thing, trying to claw its way inside, to tear the house apart piece by piece. You can feel it in the air, the relentless pressure of the blizzard, the way the windows rattle in their frames, the snow piling higher and higher against the glass until it blurs the world outside into a swirling white void. Dawn is nothing more than a dirty gray smear across the sky, the kind of light that drains the color from everything it touches, making the once cozy kitchen feel like a tomb, cold and unforgiving. They gather here because no one can stand to be alone upstairs, not with the study door still closed, not with Harlan's body still lying under that tartan blanket where they left it last night, the pen that slipped from his fingers still lying on the desk like a silent accusation. Evelyn's eyes are swollen and red-rimmed, the kind of raw that comes from crying in the dark or staring at the ceiling for 6 straight hours, replaying every moment of the night before. Her hands wrap around her coffee mug, but the steam rises untouched, her fingers trembling just slightly as she avoids meeting anyone's gaze. Marcus keeps pressing his thumbs into his temples, digging in as if he can physically push the memory of Lena's scream out of his skull, the sound that shattered the house like glass, echoing in his head even now. His face is pale, the lines deeper, the man who always had a joke for every occasion, now silent, his shoulders slumped under the weight of what they all know but haven't said. Lena's hands tremble every time she lifts her mug, the porcelain clinking softly against the saucer in the unnatural quiet, a small involuntary betrayal of the storm raging inside her. She stares at the empty chair at the head of the table, Harlan's chair, the one he always claimed with that crooked grin, and you can see the grief twisting in her features, mixed with something sharper, something that looks like fear. Theo sits a little apart from the others, elbows on the table, staring down into his black coffee as though the answers might rise to the surface if he looks long enough, his gentle face unreadable, his eyes distant, as if he is already somewhere else, somewhere far from this room and the body in the study. The smell of the kitchen is the same as it has always been, wood smoke from the dying fire in the hearth, old stone walls that have absorbed a century of secrets, the faint trace of last night's wine clinging to the air like a ghost. But this morning it feels wrong, almost mocking, a reminder of how normal everything was just 12 hours ago. None of them have slept. None of them have spoken more than a few necessary words since they covered Harlan's body and retreated to the drawing room, the silence between them thick and heavy, broken only by the occasional creak of the house settling under the snow. They have all silently agreed on the story they will tell when the road finally opens and the police arrive. Harlan's heart gave out while he was writing, a tragic but natural end to a life that burned too bright. It is the version that hurts the least, the one that lets them hold on to the man they loved, at least for now. But the house itself seems to disagree. Every creak of the floorboards sounds like a question, echoing through the corridors like footsteps that aren't there. Every gust of wind against the windows feels like an accusation, rattling the panes as if demanding they admit what really happened. They can feel the weight of what happened pressing down on them, heavier than the snow piling up outside, heavier than the secret each one of them is carrying in their chest, buried deep but stirring now, rising to the surface. And somewhere in the back of every mind, the same thought is beginning to form. If it wasn't a heart attack, then which one of us made sure it wasn't? The air in the kitchen grows thicker with every passing minute, the unspoken suspicions starting to coil like smoke, and you can sense it. The roller coaster is about to drop, the motives about to explode, and nothing will ever be the same.
The silence in the kitchen stretches like a taut wire, the kind that could snap at any moment and cut deep. It is Evelyn who finally breaks it, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might summon Harlan's ghost back into the room. She stands slowly, her chair scraping against the stone floor with a sound that echoes too loudly in the quiet, and says she is going upstairs to fetch the last 20 pages he was working on. No one argues. No one meets her eyes. They all know this is coming, the moment they have been dreading since Lena's scream shattered the night, but none of them can stop it now. Evelyn disappears up the creaking stairs, her footsteps fading into the house's ancient groans, leaving the others alone with the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hall, each tick like a heartbeat that isn't Harlan's anymore. She returns minutes later, the pages clutched in her hands like fragile relics, the papers slightly crumpled from where Harlan's arm had pinned them to the desk. They spread them out on the table, the sheets fanning across the scarred oak surface that has seen so many shared meals, so many laughter-filled nights, now transformed into something colder, a makeshift courtroom where their lives are about to be dissected. The handwriting is unmistakably Harlan's, that elegant, slightly slanted script they have all seen on birthday cards, love letters, and book dedications for decades. The kind of writing that always carried a warmth, a personal touch. But today, in this gray light, the words on these pages feel different, sharper, like knives hidden in velvet. They're not the warm, forgiving love letter they had all secretly hoped for, the one that would wrap their shared history in nostalgia and grace. No, Harlan had started to peel back the layers none of them ever wanted exposed, layer by layer, with the precision of a surgeon or a judge. Old betrayals surface in his descriptions, the ones they had all agreed to bury years ago, the fights and the lies, and the moments when trust fractured but was patched over with time and silence. Hidden failures emerged, the careers that almost crumbled, the dreams that died quietly in the dark. The kind of truths that once spoken aloud cannot be taken back or forgiven. Truths that hang in the air now like smoke from the dying fire, choking the room. In the margins, in smaller, tighter writing that looks like it was added in hurried bursts of honesty, he had begun making notes about each of them. Notes that feel less like affection and more like a final, merciless reckoning, a settling of scores from a man who knew he was running out of time. The candle stub from last night still flickers weakly beside the pages, casting dancing shadows over the words, making them seem to move, to shift, as if Harlan is still writing them even now from beyond the blanket in the study. They read in fragments at first, voices low and hesitant, passing the sheets hand to hand, as though the paper itself is burning their fingers, each person lingering on the parts that cut the deepest. With every paragraph, the atmosphere in the kitchen grows heavier, the air thicker, until it feels like the storm outside has moved indoors and settled between them. pressing down on their chests, making it hard to breathe. Evelyn's breath catches on one line. Marcus mutters something under his breath. Lena's fingers tighten on the edge of a page until it creases. Theo simply stares, his face a mask, but his eyes betray the storm inside. The snow keeps falling outside, muffling the world, sealing them in with these words that were never meant to be read like this. Not with Harlan gone, not with suspicion already coiling in the room like a snake ready to strike. And as they turn the final page, the one with the unfinished dedication, the realization sinks in. This memoir wasn't just a book, it was a bomb, and Harlan's death was the only thing that stopped it from detonating everything they had built.
Evelyn is the first to reach for one of the scattered pages, her fingers brushing the paper as if it might burn her, the ink still holding the faint warmth of Harlan's hand from the night before. She reads silently at first, her eyes scanning the lines, her breath catching in her chest like a hook snagging on something deep inside. The kitchen falls into an even deeper hush, the only sounds the distant howl of the wind and the occasional pop from the dying embers in the hearth, each one like a small explosion in the tense air. Then she begins to read aloud, her voice starting steady but cracking on the third sentence, the words tumbling out like stones from a collapsing wall. Harlan had written in unflinching detail that feels like a knife twisting slowly about the night her mother died, how Evelyn, the cardiologist who had sworn to heal, had made the agonizing decision to increase the morphine when the pain became unbearable, when the cancer had eaten away everything but the suffering. She describes the scene as if she is reliving it right there at the table, the dim hospital room smelling of antiseptic and despair, the monitors beeping their relentless rhythm, her mother's hand frail and cold in hers, the final whisper of thank you before the breathing slowed, faltered, and finally stopped. Harlan had not named her outright, but every medical detail is there, every timestamp etched in the narrative like a scar, every whispered conversation between Evelyn and the night nurse that no one else should have known. The others look at her, really look at her, their eyes widening in the gray light, the weight of the revelation sinking in like lead in their stomachs. The air in the room thickens, the storm outside seeming to press closer against the windows, as if the mountain itself is leaning in to listen to this confession that wasn't meant to be shared like this. Evelyn lowers the page, her hand shaking now, the paper fluttering slightly in her grip like a leaf caught in the wind. She doesn't deny it, she can't. Instead, she meets their gazes one by one, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying the raw edge of truth, saying that she would do it again in a heartbeat, that mercy sometimes looks like letting go when holding on is just cruelty in disguise. The words hang there, echoing in the silence, and for the first time the word motive is no longer abstract, no longer a shadow lurking in the corners of their minds. It steps into the light, stark and undeniable. Evelyn, the nurturing doctor who had checked Harlan's pulse last night with those same steady hands, had the most to lose if that chapter ever saw print. Her career, built on years of saving lives, would crumble under the weight of a euthanasia scandal. Her freedom could be stripped away in a courtroom. The life she had rebuilt after that night, the fragile peace she had found, would shatter like the frost cracking on the window behind her. Marcus shifts in his chair, the wood creaking under him, his face a mask of discomfort as he avoids her eyes. Lena reaches out a hand but pulls it back, her theatrical warmth frozen in the moment. Theo simply watches, his gentle features unchanging, but something flickers in his eyes, a depth that makes you wonder what secrets he is weighing in his own heart. The relationships in the room, once as solid as the manor's stone walls, grow complicated now, threads of trust fraying under the strain of what Harlan has revealed.
The victim himself is recontextualized in an instant. Harlan, the generous friend who kept secrets for so long, now seems less innocent, more like a judge who had been quietly collecting evidence all these years, ready to deliver his verdict in print. Evelyn wipes her tears with the back of her hand, the gesture small and human, but the suspicion has been planted, taking root in the fertile soil of their shared grief, and you can feel it growing, twisting, ready to choke everything else out.
Marcus finds his own name next on the pages, his fingers snatching the sheet from the pile with a roughness that nearly tears the paper, the sound of it rustling in the quiet kitchen like a whisper from Harlan himself, mocking him from beyond the study door. He reads silently at first, his eyes narrowing, his jaw tightening until you can almost hear the grind of his teeth in the stillness, the gray light from the window falling across his face and highlighting the sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. The storm outside rumbles on, the wind battering the manor like fists on a door. But inside this room, the real tempest is brewing in Marcus's chest, rising with every word Harlan had committed to ink 25 years ago, words that should have stayed buried. Harlan had written without a trace of mercy or the old friendship that once bound them, about the hedge fund collapse that shattered lives back then, the one where hundreds of investors, ordinary people with savings and dreams, lost everything in a blink, while Marcus walked away with a spotless reputation, unscathed, because Harlan had stepped in and taken the fall for him, shouldering the blame like a brother would. The details are devastatingly precise, laid out like evidence in a courtroom. The dates of the secret meetings and smoke-filled offices, the exact amounts siphoned away, the forged signatures on documents that look so real even the regulators were fooled for a time. Marcus's voice, when he finally reads it aloud, starts low and controlled but cracks like thunder on the word fraud, the syllable hanging in the air like a noose, tightening around his neck with every eye now fixed on him. The others see it now with brutal clarity, the mask slipping from the witty, generous man who always poured the drinks and told the best stories. Marcus has spent 3 decades rebuilding his life on the foundation of that single buried lie, layer upon layer of success stacked on sand. Exposure would destroy everything: his marriage to the woman who believed in his innocence, his children's view of him as the flawless father who could do no wrong, the entire empire of respect and wealth he has constructed since that dark chapter, all crumbling like the snow sliding off the roof outside. He slams the page down on the table, the impact echoing through the kitchen like a gunshot, his fists clenching until the knuckles turn white, his breath coming in short, ragged bursts that fill the room with the sound of a man fighting for air. For a moment, it looks like he might actually cry, his eyes glistening in the dim light, the vulnerability raw and unexpected from the one who always played the strong one. Evelyn shifts uncomfortably in her chair, the wood creaking under her, her own secrets still fresh in the air like blood and water. Lena reaches for her mug, but her hand freezes midway, her theatrical warmth now a frozen statue, her eyes wide with the realization that the man she once trusted with her secrets might have been hiding worse. Theo simply watches from his spot at the end of the table, his gentle features unchanging, but his fingers tap once, twice on the edge of his coffee cup, a small tell that betrays the calculations turning in his mind. Another motive laid bare, stark and undeniable, hanging between them like a blade poised to fall. The relationships that once felt unbreakable now fracture further, the cracks spreading like frost on the window panes, and you could feel it in your bones, the suspicion shifting, the emotional turn hitting like a punch to the gut, a reason to doubt what they all thought they knew about the man who laughed loudest last night. Harlan's words have done their work, recontextualizing not just Marcus but all of them, turning the victim into something more complex, a keeper of truths who perhaps knew too much,
And in this moment, with the storm raging outside, the roller coaster drops another notch, leaving everyone breathless.
Lena is the next to pull a page toward her, her bracelets clinking softly against the table like a distant warning bell, her fingers trembling as they trace Harlan's familiar script, the words blurring slightly through the unshed tears gathering in her eyes. She reads the section about the divorce settlement Harlan was secretly rewriting, the one that would strip away the house, the royalties, the financial safety net she had clung to for 15 years like a lifeline in a raging sea, leaving her adrift and exposed at 53. The kitchen air grows even thicker, the storm outside seeming to pause its fury for a moment as if to listen, the wind dying to a whisper against the windows while Lena's breath quickens, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. She laughs at first, the old theatrical laugh that once filled grand stages and drawing rooms alike, a sound that bounces off the stone walls but rings hollow now, echoing back at her like a cruel mockery of the woman she used to be. But it quickly turns into something closer to a sob, the laughter fracturing like glass under pressure, her shoulders shaking as the reality crashes over her like a wave, pulling her down to the floor where she slides against the cabinets, the wood hard and unforgiving against her back. She admits it then, voice raw and breaking like a dam finally giving way, that she is almost 2 crore in debt to people who are no longer willing to wait, shadowy figures from her gambling nights who have sent messages that chill her more than the blizzard outside, demands that have kept her awake long before Harlan's death. Losing the house would leave her homeless and broke, stripped of the last remnants of the life she had salvaged after the divorce, the royalties that paid for the illusions she still clung to. The pages scatter around her on the floor like fallen dreams, her hands clutching at them as if she could tear the words away, erase the verdict Harlan had written in his final hours. The others exchange glances, their faces a canvas of shifting shadows in the dim light, Evelyn's hand hovering as if to reach out, but frozen in the air. Marcus shifting his weight uncomfortably, his own secret still throbbing like a fresh wound. Theo observing with that quiet intensity, his eyes narrowing slightly as if piecing together a puzzle only he can see. Another motive laid bare, stark and undeniable, blooming in the room like a poisonous flower, its petals unfurling to reveal the desperation that could drive a woman to silence the one man who held her fate in his pen. Lena, the woman who always seemed the most openly devastated by Harlan's death, her screams echoing through the manor like a siren's call last night, now has the clearest reason to have wanted him gone before he could finish that final damning chapter. She looks up at them from the floor, her makeup smudged, her eyes wide and pleading, the actress stripped of her stage, begging them to understand that she loved Harlan, that she would never... But the words hang unfinished, just like his dedication, leaving doubt to fill the space. The suspicion shifts again, a living thing slithering from one to the next, the emotional turn hitting like a gust of wind rattling the panes, a reason to doubt the tears they all saw last night, to wonder if the performance was for them or for herself. Harlan's memoir has struck again, recontextualizing not just Lena, but the entire fragile web of their friendships, turning grief into something sharper, more dangerous. And you can feel it, the roller coaster plunging deeper, the air growing thinner, the scene closing in until you're right there on the floor with her, heart pounding, waiting for the next crack to appear.
Theo has been mostly silent all morning, his presence like a shadow in the corner of the kitchen, watching the revelations unfold with that quiet, gentle demeanor that always made him seem the least threatening person in any room, the one who quoted poetry and comforted others without ever demanding the spotlight. But now, he finally speaks, his voice soft but perfectly clear, cutting through the heavy air like a knife slipping between ribs, saying he went upstairs earlier to fetch a sweater from his room and happened to notice Evelyn's suitcase still open on the bed, the contents slightly disarrayed from the night before. The kitchen falls into a deeper hush, the storm outside seeming to hold its breath, the wind dying to a murmur as Theo reaches into his pocket and places something small on the table with a soft, ominous clink. Evelyn's spare bottle of digoxin, the heart medication she always carried as a cardiologist, the very pills that could have stopped Harlan's heart in under an hour if crushed and stirred into his nightly Macallan, dissolving invisibly into the amber liquid he sipped alone in the study. The bottle sits there in the center of the table like a live grenade, the label glaring up at them with its clinical warnings, the pills rattling faintly inside as the wind shakes the manor, a sound that echoes like a distant accusation. Evelyn's face drains of every drop of color, her skin going as pale as the snow pressing against the window, her eyes widening in disbelief as she stares at the bottle she swears she left zipped in her medical kit, not loose in her suitcase where anyone could have seen it, touched it, taken it. She swears she never touched it last night, that someone must have taken it from her bag while she was downstairs, her words tumbling out like a dam breaking, pleading with them to believe her. But the bottle is there, undeniable, in her luggage, in the room where only she has the medical knowledge to know exactly how much digoxin it would take to mimic a natural cardiac arrest. The others look at her differently now, not with the sympathy of shared grief, but with something colder, sharper, their eyes narrowing as the suspicion shifts like a shadow moving across the floor, landing squarely on her. Marcus leans back in his chair, his arms crossing over his chest as if to shield himself. Lena glances away, her hand covering her mouth to hide the gasp. Theo simply nods once, his expression unchanged, but his eyes holding a quiet sorrow that feels almost calculated. The evidence points at Evelyn almost too strongly, almost too perfectly, like a puzzle piece forced into place, the kind of clue that makes you wonder if it's real or planted to distract from something deeper, something hidden in the margins. For the first time, one of them has been openly accused. Even if no one has said the word killer out loud yet, it hangs in the air like smoke, choking the room, turning friends into strangers in an instant. The relationships fracture further, the trust that survived decades now splintering under this new weight, and you can feel it, the roller coaster tilting, the suspicion exploding like the storm outside finally breaking through the glass, leaving everyone exposed, breathless, doubting not just Evelyn, but themselves, wondering who among them could have slipped upstairs in those unguarded moments last night. Harlan's death no longer feels like a tragedy, it feels like a plan, and the bottle on the table is the first crack in the facade, the shift that makes everything they thought they knew feel like a lie. Right now, as you're sitting there with that twist still echoing in your mind, tell me in the comments, who do you think killed Harlan? Evelyn, because of the bottle and the euthanasia secret that could end her world. Marcus, to protect the empire he built on lies. Lena, because she had nothing left to lose in her spiral of debt? Or is Theo still playing the quietest, deadliest game of all, the one we haven't seen coming yet? Drop your theory. I read every single one, and the best will be shouted out in part 3, pulling you deeper into this web we've woven together. If your stomach just dropped like mine did, recounting that bottle hitting the table, hit like. It helps this series find more souls who crave the chill of a true mystery unfolding. Share this episode with the friend who will stay up all night arguing about it with you, debating every glance, every unspoken word, living the suspense side by side. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next drop. When the suspicions turn vicious, the wrong person almost takes the fall, and the truth starts to crack everything wide open. We're in this together. See you in part 3.